talk about the anniversary of the darkest day in American history? Our most solemnest, darkest day ever in American history, apparently.
We've been led to believe that there are no days more terrible than that of January 6th. And again, it's not like something we want to talk about, but it is something that becomes relevant because that's all the people in power within the Biden administration want to talk about.
That's why it's so newsworthy.
They think that that's the only way that they're going to get Joe reelected. If that, the absurdity of where we are today can best be summed up by the fact that January 6th was bad, but to suggest that it was worse than Pearl Harbor and 9/11 combined.
Is that what he said, really? Because I haven't heard this speech. I don't want to hear this.
You've brought this up, and I think it's important for people to understand. And I know that there are others. I think our friends at Due Distance have brought it up as well. What did you think was going to happen on January 6th if, let's say, they breached the Senate chambers? Did you think that they were going to hold up the government and that somehow Joe Biden was not going to be president and that Donald Trump was going to be installed as president again and that everything was just going to be accepted as fact and that nothing would change? I don't remember a single person showing up on January 6th with guns. And you would think usually if you're going to, do a coup, that you're going to need some type of artillery in order to accomplish such a feat.
Oh, the January 6th coup. Yes. It was absurd then, and it's absurd that we're still talking about it now. It was an act of violence against people and vandalism against property that should be prosecuted accordingly.
Yeah.
But to think of it that it was any real threat to democracy is absolutely absurd. If you are someone that truly thinks that there was a threat to our institutional democracy, like when I say democracy, I don't mean I think we have an actual democracy, but to our institutions of government, let's say, then you need to get way better educated. Because here's the thing, historically speaking, the only way that coups work is if you have a military. You have to have the military.
That is willing to go along with it.
Correct. If you do not have a military, you do not have a coup. And here's the thing, Trump never had the military.
No, ever. Frankly, he probably never had it.
No, well, that's the thing. Never had the military. In fact, he still talks about how they didn't want to do what he wanted to do. He didn't have the military. There was never an actual threat to our democracy. There was a threat to people like AOC and Nancy Pelosi. Absolutely. Yes. And that should be prosecuted accordingly. It was definitely a mob. It was terroristic and it was violent. All of those things are true, but none of it, to me, was remotely serious enough to be taken as a real threat to our institution.
Which is why this idea, and now it's obviously been brought to pretty much everyone's attention, that the Supreme Court is going to hear the case regarding Donald Trump and whether or not he is eligible to remain on the ballot in the state of Colorado, which is going to come up at I think it's like the second week of February.
I got to tell you, I don't even know how shocked I'd be if they said he's not eligible. They're going to find a way to put him back on the ballot without them actually physically putting him back on the ballot. Because first of all, if I were on the Supreme Court and I was hearing this, based on what I know of the 14th Amendment, I wouldn't allow them to remove him from the ballot.
The fear is
just wouldn't.
The fear is that the Supreme Court is going to basically allow the states to decide whether he's eligible to be on the ballot. And let me tell you something. That is the Supreme Court really throwing gasoline on the fire because the Democrats are stupid enough in every blue state to kick him off, and basically every red state's going to. Now, I don't think that'll happen in every state. I think what will happen is that in the true blue states, if the Supreme Court gives it back to the people, it will be the true blue states that will kick him off. Like a state like California will kick him off the ballot.
Of course they will.
State like Illinois will kick him off the ballot. I don't think a state like Pennsylvania or a state like Michigan would.
But what's so interesting is that the people that you were talking about that are going to kick Trump off the ballot, right? These people are doing one of the most undemocratic, no due process, absolutely a complete travesty. It's like this is a mockery of anything remotely democratic. And yet these are the same people that will have you believe that January 6th was a threat to our democracy while they are unilaterally throwing people off ballots without due process.
If Gavin Newsom says that you should beat Trump at the ballot box, if Gavin Newsom is saying
well,
that,
maybe they won't throw him off the ballot in California.
Well, maybe
the truth is it doesn't matter in California. So that's the truth.
I guess not. But ultimately,
I mean, it matters as far as principle, but in terms of like what happens results wise, it won't matter.
Here's what the commander-in-chief had to say.
Today we gather in a new year, some 246 years later, just one day before January 6th. A date forever shared in our memory because it was on that day that we nearly lost America, lost it all. Today, we're here to answer the most important of questions. Is democracy still America's sacred cause? Jill and I attended the funeral of police officers who died as a result of the events of that day. Because of Donald Trump's lies, they died because these lies brought a mob to Washington. He told the crowd to fight like hell, and all hell was unleashed. He promised he would right them. And now these MAGA voices who know the truth about Trump on January 6th have abandoned the truth and abandoned the democracy. They made their choice. Now the rest of us, Democrats, independents, mainstream Republicans, we have to make our choice. I know mine, and I believe I know America's. We'll defend the truth, not give in to the big lie.
Oh, I know my choice.
Joe.
Joe.
You've lost the plot, pal.
Oh my God. How ridiculous. Okay.
We almost lost America.
We almost lost America.
We almost lost America.
By,
no, America's already been lost, by the way, if we're being honest.
By a bunch of people without weapons breaking and entering. We almost lost America.
Yeah,
I think that is so ridiculously hyperbolic, and it's so clear that that's all they have.
Well,
all they have is fear-based.
But that also makes it a lot more dangerous. See, he's the one making it more dangerous by going out there and basically saying that the world is coming to an end.
It is this way.
You stir people into such a frenzy. You know, if you're totally listening to me, I told you the election's rigged in this country, blah, 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 blah. But you literally will, when you think about the liberal mindset,
I try not
and
to.
The fact that they're so over emotional when it comes to this type of stuff. Mm-hmm. Think about what you're doing to people like that are really believe that Trump is the Antichrist. Like this carnival barker.
Yeah, well, that's what they want. I mean, that's the thing. So this is a clear sign. When what we're seeing in the news is this and Trump, that's a sign that the people doing that have no better solutions. They got nothing for you. They have nothing. They have no ideas. They have no strategy. They have no nothing. And you know what? They don't care to. So this is just so much easier for them. It just gives them such fodder to not have to come up with solutions. But anybody who truly thought January 6th was an actual, and I mean an actual real threat to America, I don't mean to the people in the building and to that, then seriously, you are really stupid. You just are. I'm sorry. That is just one of the dumbest things you could possibly believe. Have you not ever seen what happens in other countries when there's actual coups? Am I the only person that has seen this in places like in Africa and South America, Latin, wherever it is? If you've ever seen any news with a coup involved, there's a military. Now, sometimes it's the private army versus the national army. It's this army versus that army. There's different factions of military, but there's a military in place with weaponry. And there was never that on January 6th. You had a bunch of morons breaking and entering with a few violent people with them. And that's the extent of it. And people got hurt, and that's really horrible. And I'm glad people got prosecuted, because really, if you're that stupid, you should. And really, I don't even feel that bad for people that got themselves killed that day that were willingly participating. To anybody that wasn't willingly participating that got hurt, that's wrong.
Something as simple, before we bring in our wonderful guest, Catherine Bogan. I thought without question that there would be something substantial that the Biden administration would pass in terms of domestic policy that would make sense on the surface for people economically.
You mean like during an election year doing things that might help people?
Something like that.
No, we can't have that.
So everyone gets caught up with canceling student debt. But to me, what's infinitely more important than that is having tuition-free public college and trade schools.
Otherwise, there's no point in canceling student debt.
Because once you have tuition-free public college and trade schools, and by the way, they've done cost-benefit analysis against this many, many times over. It's like 7 times the benefit to actually having that passed. It would cost less than 1% of the annual federal budget.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.